Um, Thank you for joining the We Rise Memorial Day as we honor those who have fallen as well as those who've served. We have an exciting hour tonight. And just to give you a little bit for those who maybe are just tuning in, tonight will consist of two different sets of reflections. The first is a conversation with some wonderful people that I'm just excited that are lined up for here. We're gonna have a conversation with some prominent veteran voices here in Los Angeles County. And then we'll feature a number of remembrances expressed through the arts, as well as other words from some of our leading veteran supporters, including Dr. John Sharon, who's the director of LA County Mental Health. Look, we're honored to have the opportunity to do this, and thank you for joining us. So just to begin, I wanted to give a little background. Most people don't actually know where Memorial Day comes from. And Memorial Day was originally Decoration Day. And it originated in the years after the Civil War and then became an official federal holiday. In 1971, it was actually started in Waterloo, New York. And then we named it Memorial Day. And that's really the day, a lot of people thank soldiers for Memorial Day, but actually, and service members, but actually it's commemorated as a day to visit cemeteries, memorials, and really remember the costs of war. It also happens to be that day that marks the summer season, so it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. I guess I should begin by introducing myself a little bit for those who don't know me. My name is Nathan Graeser. I am a chaplain and a social worker. I joined the Army in 2000 and spent the first 12 years of my enlisted career as a sergeant, and then decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to help soldiers and lead them maybe in a little different way. And so I joined the dark side and became a chaplain. And I actually have been as a chaplain for the last, now it's almost 9 years. I'm a brigade chaplain with the 79th IBCT. And I'm also a social worker. I jokingly say that I became a social worker. I became a chaplain, which was my why, but social work was my how. And after I became a chaplain, I went on to USC to both get my master's of social work and then became a clinical social worker, and then began to work with veterans and finished my doctorate at USC 2 years ago. So I come here with a lot of passion and experience, but I am not the only one. We have an exciting lineup of people with tremendous life experience. And man, I'm just looking at their faces. You'll get to meet them soon. But we're going to have a little discussion about Memorial Day from people whose work is really informed by the losses and really and how they act out remembering every day. And you know, the old Hebrew word for remember is literally to walk something. It's an action word. We don't, we think of it in the past, but actually to remember is to invoke the people that came before us. And so we're going to have a conversation today about what that looks like. And I want to just begin by introducing everyone. And so maybe we could just begin by asking each of you to give a brief introduction about yourself. And I don't know, Victor, you want to begin?
Sure, I'll start. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this important conversation. I am the previous Director of Veterans Affairs for the City of Chicago, and now I preside here in Southern California, where I work for the City of Hope, and my role there is to help veterans pursue their passion in healthcare by working to serve others just as they did when they wore the uniform of our nation. So I'm an Army veteran, post 9/11 vet, and like Nate himself, I started out in the intelligence field, and that's where I pursued my time and was able to really serve with some of the best young people I've ever met in this country. And quite frankly, in some ways, I miss it every day, but it has been a great journey for me personally. And I look forward to serving other veterans in the best capacity I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Tess?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. My name is Tess Banko. I am a social worker. I'm a public administrator. I served in the United States Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, I served as an engineer. It was the engineer field, so I was an electrician. Today, I'm the director of the UCLA VA Veteran Family Wellness Center, which is a partnership between UCLA and the VA. That's pretty unique and exciting to me to be involved with. I am the co-chair of the LA Veterans Collaborative. I am the Veterans Advisory Commissioner for 3rd District Sheila Kuehl, one of two. And I'm also on the board of the Pacific Palisades American Legion Post 283.
Thank you, Tess. Wonderful. Gabe, you want to introduce yourself? I think you're muted, Gabe. All right. We're going to come back to Gabe. Shad, how about Shad?
Poor Gabe. I'm Shad Meshad. I was in Vietnam in 1970. I was a U.S. Army Captain, Medical Service Corps, mental health officer, social work mental health officer. Came back in 71, and Memorial Day weekend literally was when I arrived in LA in 71. And through the first 8 years of dealing with Vietnam combat vets on the streets of LA, I set up the only counseling unit for Vietnam vets at the time in America out of LA, and became a national program that I authored under Jimmy Carter, the Vet Center program. Set up the first 100 in America. And after about 7 years with that, I started my own nonprofit, the National Veterans Foundation. We're going into our 35th year, run a crisis and information hotline. And I'm honored to still be a part of the game of readjustment, and with all these young, beautiful people that are on this broadcast today. I'm kind of shocked that I'm still around, but anyway, it's great.
Thanks, Shad.
Don't laugh too hard.
Gabe, got your sound working yet? I can't hear you, but we can see you. All right, we're gonna daggone it, Gabe. We heard you the whole time. So, Gabe, we're gonna come back to you, but I just want to begin by kind of framing some of the questions that I want to talk about today, which is, I mentioned this idea of remembering in Memorial Day, but I think this is really important. We don't have a lot of cultural significance around remembering anymore. Most of us, we don't have good cultural. We have funerals, but we don't have a lot of ways that we remember those who died. And I think even in the last few months, COVID-19 has really exemplified this. Right, when we lose people, they become a number, and it's sometimes very difficult to be connected to the lives and the stories that they lived, and even the sacrifices. Right, even the many health workers that have died, the real sacrifices that people make for society. And that's one of the things that makes this day so important, actually, is that it's about remembering those who came before us, and really those who didn't make it here with us. And so, Shad, I just wanted to start with you. You came right out the gate with your experience in helping Vietnam vets when they were coming home. And especially after a war that had a lot of mixed feelings, and wasn't well welcomed home, and may not have connected with this idea of what it meant to honor people for their service. And I wonder, two questions really: why do you do this work, and what, and then as a Vietnam veteran yourself, what does this day mean to you?
Well, why I do this work is I came out of Vietnam with my whole body but my spirit was really damaged. I went into the dark night like so many of us, and We had to fight the war in Vietnam and the war coming home. And having been an older officer, 24 going on 25 in Vietnam, I saw that we were in trouble. I saw the war had changed in 68, 69. I was there in 1970. There was hardly any leadership. You know, it was a body count war. Everybody was aware of it. The year I was there, I was dealing with racial riots, fraggings, drug addiction. It was a war within a war, and I came home angry. And I had the opportunity. I call it a God shot to end up in LA, being invited by three of my sergeants that I had in one of the first mental health clinics in war in Vietnam. And my sergeants brought me out. And as I said, we were all pretty angry. They were going to school at USC, and I had the opportunity to meet the top psychiatrist at UCLA, who was also over what today is known as the West LA VA. And he asked me to come in and fix the problem, because at that time, 335,000 Vietnam vets in the county, twice the size of the city I came out of in Birmingham, Alabama at the time, and fix it. The only way I did was hit the streets, and that's really how I got to run rap groups. That word rap group came from, a lot of people claim, but I mean, that's what we did. We rapped in 50 to 70 rap groups all over the city and in church basements. We had free clinics all over the city back in the early 70s, and that's where the Vietnam vets went for service. And of course, I connected with all those service leaders, and eventually, because I had a unit, I was able to grease the way into the VA so they could get treated and get their benefits. And that journey was a way of me paying back God or whoever for coming back alive and having the opportunity to set up some programs and be involved with some great people. Many of them are dead and gone, colleagues from all over the country, as we became very loud about the experience, more so than these current veterans like yourself, and protesting everything. And it's right in the middle of it. It was a crazy time, the early 70s or whatever. But in the late 70s, I got the opportunity to go to Washington under Jimmy Carter and clone the program that I had in Los Angeles and set up the first 100 vet centers in America and train counselors that we were hiring as best we could from Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska, and everything in between. It was an insane time. And I survived that and left the bureaucracy to start my own program, the National Veterans Foundation, which, I felt like we needed to make things simple, stupid. And we set up a toll-free number. Then that was huge. This is all before social media, and people could call free anywhere in the country, any veteran, any war, and connect them with a lot of the services that were around. And today, particularly, many of you are those people that we refer to, not only in Los Angeles, but nationwide. And I guess I feel lucky, blessed. The second question about Memorial Day means to me, I think, because I've never really left the war, I think of over 300 18, 19-year-olds that I bagged at the 95th evac over my year. And I made a promise to myself, if I did come back alive, that I'd have to do something to give back, because they gave their life. And it's driven me to this day. I arrived here in LA 49 years ago today. And 50 years ago, I was in Vietnam in that crazy situation. And I've met a lot. I've met so many folks nationwide and worldwide, but particularly the new folks here in LA through Dr. Sharin who's really trying to bring all the services together. I think it's great. His guy, Jim Zinner, and just a host of others. I've met a few of you briefly or whatever, but I'm just honored to be a part of this group. I'm honored to be a veteran, but an active veteran. And I hope I have a few more years to go.
Thank you. Shad, something that you said struck me, which is that, that a big part of you does this because you witness people who wouldn't get to do this work, right? Or who weren't coming home. And I think that resonates for a lot of veterans, which is that, when you see, if you've been in war or you've experienced, most people in service, if you're in service long enough, you will lose people. If you're in life long enough and you care about them, you'll lose people you love. And then you have this sort of choice to make, which is, what do I do with that, right? I lost this person, these people, or maybe I had these really profound moments and I'm really angry about what do I do with this? And Shad, it's just an honor to see, what you have done in the last 49 years, right? You really made sense of those losses in a way that is not only honorable, but is something that I think all of us, even as younger vets, can look at and sort of say, hey, look, that's a way, and maybe we should be louder, then maybe there is more to say. I want to, man, thank you, Shad. That's a wonderful way to tee it up. It sounds like we have Gabriel's voice has come back. It's a miracle. But I wanted to give it a second to have Gabriel introduce himself, and then I'll ask a few more questions of you. Gabe?
Thank you, Nate. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriel Santos. I'm the Veteran Services Program Liaison for Volunteers of America. Also, I'm a U.S. Army veteran with the 144 Field Artillery. I'm also the co-chair with Tess for the Access and Engagement Group for the Los Angeles Veterans Collaborative. And that's my intro. Thank you, Nate. Back to you.
All right. I feel like you should have an earpiece and say, thanks, Gabe. All right. This is, thanks, Gabe. Gabe and I Gabe serves in the unit that was my first love. Artillery was my first love. It was my first unit. And for that, I feel like, Gabe, you are my blood brother.
For sure.
I know your life, so that's great. I wanted to shift a little bit here and ask you, Tess, a question. I know I've had the privilege of working alongside Tess for many years now and seeing her not only passion for this work, but also, Tess represents someone to me in our community that is able to share fairly openly about her life and help people understand what it means to kind of make sense of suffering in your life. And so it feels fitting that on Memorial Day, as we're talking about remembering, or we're even talking about what it means to live with memories, right, of people that came before us. Tess, say only what you're comfortable with, but I would love you to share, if you feel, just a little bit about how maybe loss or remembering shapes your work, and particularly some of your work you do in LA with veterans.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think that I've had a pretty intimate relationship with loss. Loss has certainly marked many of my years. There have been some losses that I never thought that I would be able to recover from, and I know that I'm not alone in that sentiment. So if you feel that way currently, or you have before, just know that you're not alone. But, most notably, serving in the Marine Corps, I lost a version of myself. I had an injury, a pretty catastrophic back injury that ended my military career. While I was on active duty, I experienced sexual assault, and I also lost somebody very close to me from suicide. So it was very challenging. And these things, didn't happen all at once, but cumulatively, as is often the case with trauma, they added up. So in Hawaiian culture, they have something called the bowl of light. And it says that when we're born with a perfect bowl of golden light. And as we go through life, these rocks are dropped one by one into this bowl until the capacity is diminished. And eventually, if there's not a way of emptying the bowl, it overflows. And so I experienced that firsthand, just based on the cumulative nature of trauma. I didn't know exactly what was wrong with me. I started facing challenges. I was having sleep disturbances. I was having nightmares at night. I started having severe anxiety, and it took me a while to, go in personally and actually have someone say to me, you have post-traumatic stress disorder. So not only were these losses in the military, outside of the military, but then also the loss of my own perception of who I was. And I think that that really has informed my work, especially in the field of resilience, which is a big part of what we do at the Veteran Family Wellness Center. It's resilience-based wellness. So we teach tangible skills to veterans and their families to be able to surmount losses like the ones I experienced. So I learned, in moving through this, that resilience, when you least expect it, is innate. So it's something that we're all born with. We might not know it, and sometimes the levels of it get tremendously low, but they can actually be built. So these are skills that we can work on. I learned that, even the vocabulary to speak about the things that we've endured, the traumas that we've experienced, that doesn't always come naturally. So being able to say, hey, I'm hurting, I'm having challenges, or recognizing that in another person, saying, how are you doing? What's going on with you? I care about you. Please tell me, really, really, how are you? Because I know a lot of us in the veterans community have a tendency to kind of white knuckle our way, as Nate would put it, through challenges. So, developing the inner resources, and then also developing the external community. So like this community that we're in and that I'm so blessed to be a part of, it's developing those connections and those supports, and really making your way kind of through the trauma and helping other people make it through trauma. So, there's a path through it. There's a path through trauma. It entails growth. A lot of people talk about post-traumatic stress. And I think it's something that clearly has an effect on our community and ourselves. But on the opposite side of that, on the flip side of that, is post-traumatic growth. So I think that all of these things are possible to learn when moving through trauma. And I really think identity, mission, meaning, and purpose are important parts of that. So who am I? Where am I? Where do I want to go? Regardless of how challenging. Just charting that path. So that's really why I do it. And those are some of the things that I've learned moving through it.
Thanks, Tess. That's wonderful. Yeah, it just strikes me that some of the people that I admire or look up to, or even I'm just who you are in our community. You didn't get there by accident, right? You got there because it was a lot of what I like to call lessons earned, right? That you had experiences that then you made sense out of them, and then even as Shad said, you chose to sort of pave a way for the people behind you. And that in many ways, that's sort of the idea of remembering, which is this idea that you can use the experiences of the people who didn't make it and carry those with you so that people behind you then can make it, right? There's something beautiful about that. And just your work at UCLA, you embody that. And so thank you for sharing that. Victor, I would love to shift to you a little bit here. And I just kind of want to ask, why do you do work with veterans? And then have you been shaped by loss and remembering anyway, my fellow intelligence brother? And if so, how does that play into today for you and some of the more the work around veterans that you do?
Gotcha. Loss is something interesting to me, in part that I learned in the military that you can use adversity as fuel, right? Sometimes fuel for bad things and sometimes fuel for good things. And when my service came to an abrupt end because of my injuries, I wasn't sure how to deal with the loss of my unit, the loss of the tribe, the loss of my team. And as they pushed out, as the rear duty NCO, when you're pushing everybody out, the last thing you want to be is the last guy still in garrison, to see folks leave, knowing that they're going back in harm's way, knowing the work that we do is challenging and difficult. And for me, once I got home, I felt so out of place. I knew that I had to find another mission. Wasn't quite sure what that mission was going to be, but I knew I had to get my hands into something, and immediately got to started working as a case manager for the Department of Health and Human Services, and it gave me a new sense of purpose through service. And I think there was some healing or some reconciliation for me in just having the opportunity to give back in a different way, because I had lost that previous mission that I worked so hard to gain and to be a part of. And, when you lose that, you lose a part of yourself, right? That's a part of your identity. So when you take off the uniform, you don't take off who you are at the core. You don't take off that soldier and that warfighter. You figure out how to tuck it in and act normal in front of other people, right? So that you don't fit out. You don't stand out. And for me, serving others became a way of giving back. And as I started seeing guys from my old unit, my own team coming back stateside, dealing with other challenges, getting out of the service, recognizing that we'd lost some guys in Afghanistan, and having lost a friend earlier in one of our other brigades in Iraq, it really kind of, it made me think, what would these guys want to do if they had their lives? What would they want to achieve? What would they want to be? And, again, it reignited that fuel for me. And it gave me the ability and the mindset that I was going to work hard every day. I was going to take advantage of the opportunities I had. I wasn't going to, cry about what I couldn't do anymore. And for me, being able to stick my teeth into serving veterans was my way of working with veterans again, was my way back a part of the tribe, and to help other veterans recognize where they were, gather the skills to go out and be competitive, to show civilians what we're capable of doing, really was, for me, part of the healing process, if you will. And, even today, being able to mentor and be mentored by other veterans and service members, it does keep me focused on what's important and what's valuable. And, one of the things I try to always share to people is that, at some point, things will change, and life is about change. That's what transition is. We are in a perpetual state of transition, and I heard many people say this. Even Tess has said it when, we've spoken at other panels. The question is, how do you prepare yourself for the next chapter? How do you gear yourself up for the next voyage? And being ready when that opportunity presents itself. So I appreciate being able to find my why and develop my how. And now I'm able to help other veterans do that same thing. Because one of the things we really suck at is asking help, right? Especially when we get out, we try to go at it alone, which is the worst thing to do. So, when we see one another struggling, we try to catch each other early and say, hey, that's not the way to success. That's not the pathway to how you get it done. Let me show you this book. Let me send you this video clip. Be a part of this discussion. And you start seeing the change, and we fall back into a place where we have a support network, and we have some mutual accountability. So LA is a great place for that, because we have so many veterans here who care about one another. And in spite of what systems don't do for us, we found ways to create systems that do work for us. And it's, without people like Shad, I don't know that we all would have found our next mission coming home. I don't know that without older or generations doing it correctly, we would have done it successfully today. And not that we've solved every problem, but I'm proud of the work that veterans here do, because it makes home a better place when folks come home. So I'm excited about that piece.
Thank you, Victor. Man, you really do exemplify the same. You can start to hear this theme that part of finding yourself is taking these experiences that you struggle to make sense of and then incorporating them into a life that allows for people to live better lives because you were here, right? Because you came home and you have fully engaged. Now we have a LA that we're more proud of, right? Because we have people like Tess and Shad, and well, maybe first Shad, then maybe Victor. Like a way that it flows, right? That people come, that you do work for those who come behind you, and there's something that's really powerful. That so I feel like it's kind of a natural shift to our currently serving member, right? Who's maybe our newest veteran. And who's actively doing work in LA, Gabe. I wanted to ask you a question. We've heard some of the conversations from Shad and Victor and Tess, who really beautifully articulated what it means to make sense of their life post-military, and that a lot of their work has been sort of driven out of what is like the follow-on work. But as someone who's still in the military, you're still in, right? You live in these two worlds. You're doing, you have this tremendous role at VOA, and you have a lot of passion, and even at the LA Veterans Collaborative, you've taken a lot of leadership roles, but you still have this other role in the military. I wonder, what do you think is missing in our work, right? For veterans who are coming to Los Angeles, or people, your brothers and sisters who you serve with, who get out in Los Angeles, what is missing? And what does Memorial Day have to say to that? That's kind of a tough question, but
that's all right, Nate. Hopefully I can answer it. So one of the main things that is missing is the ability to transition, but at the appropriate time, right when you ETS, right? So I believe that what LA County DMH is doing by bringing on board VPAN and bringing on all these amazing organizations all in itself to just help veterans transition instantly, and while at the same time keeping other organizations accountable, that to me is exactly where we need to go. Prior to all of that happening before, it was Abraham Lincoln's promise that it's the government's job to help veterans transition. But now with all of us working together collaboratively, I think that's the ultimate goal. Kudos to ETS sponsorship for kind of helping us do that all in itself. They have a partnership with the VA and the DOD where they have access to right when the soldier ETS is to help them transition by collaboratively working with nonprofits, public entities, all together. And I feel like that's exactly what we're also trying to accomplish in LA County. I feel like I answered the question there. And honestly, as a current serving member of the National Guard, it's tough balancing it, especially when you get activated and you have your family and you have your work. But as long as you have a supportive family and a supportive employer, it goes hand in hand and you learn to balance it. But also without these amazing individuals, it just wouldn't be able to get done. But I feel like we're going in the right direction with LA County for sure.
That's good to hear. Okay. I get that from you. That's wonderful to hear. And it feels like it's one of the maybe one of the best things we can do to remember those who came before us is to build a system that helps people more today, right? That veterans get now, we can build a better LA for veterans. And I look at all these faces and I'm like, man, yeah, we're in this together. But today is really also about something else. And so I imagine that there are probably some people logged in or who are watching and maybe cooking dinner, kind of not paying, whatever it is. Who maybe have a father or brother, but the truth is that who serves in the military, but the truth is that most people today, even in LA, in the most veteran populous city and county in the country, most people today barely know veterans, right? Veterans consist of a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. In the field, it's fairly well known that that veterans are less than 6% of the servable age of people who are living, but it's actually of the total population, it's less than 0.6, right? So that means that most people functionally don't even know or have a relationship with a vet or someone who served in the military. I know from most of my friend group, I am the one person who they know who served. Not, like outside of my veteran friends, I'm the one person in my family, and most of us have that feeling unless we come from very military-centered families. So I guess my question then is, what advice, this is for anyone, what advice do you have for people watching today on how they can, what Memorial Day can mean for them? How do they connect with veterans if they don't know veterans? Do you have any thoughts on that? Is there anything you can say to somebody who might be sitting in the kitchen and thinking, thank you for your, thanks, but what do I have to do about it? What do I have to say?
I'll start off and say, I want to hear from the new folks, because I've tried everything for the last 49 years, particularly on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And it's usually, a shopping day. The big thing is Memorial Day sale, the Veterans Day sale. I've tried everything. I need to hear some new thoughts. I'm desperate. I could roll through a million things we've tried.
All right. So
Yeah.
We'll chalk that up to the Babe Ruth approach, right? We're just waiting for a home run. Anybody else have an idea?
One of the things that when people always say to me, I don't know what to say, or what should I say about this? I try to encourage people to learn how to listen. Because we do have a story to tell. We may not always know how to tell that story, but when you have a loved one who you might see who exhibits behavior that really may isolate themselves, and you can tell that they missed the military or their time in the service, or how they light up when they talk to their friends, right? There's a connection here. And in society, we are a bit isolated culturally as a veteran population, because most people interact with us around holidays and events and initiatives, but it's not most people know their neighbors who are veterans or who have served. And sometimes it's important to listen to the things we carry, the memories we have, the stories we tell, whatever it is that may be heavy on our hearts. Whether it's moral injury or survivor's remorse, all of us have something that we may be conflicted with or fueled us in a different way. So I encourage parents and my coworkers and colleagues, listen and hear their stories and hear what's important and understand where their value system is rooted in. And don't go through this pattern of how do we get you back to being normal, get you back. I've heard people say, I want my son back. I want my wife back. It's like, you have them, but they're not who they used to be. You have to learn how to embrace the person that they are and the person that they will develop into later on. So, I think that's an important piece, but I'm sure Tess has some other great ideas as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of, again, the vocabulary. So just asking somebody, and it's not, it doesn't just have to do with veterans and veteran status. It could just be even asking your neighbor, how do you usually observe Memorial Day? What do you usually do? Do you have anybody in your family that served in the military? What kind of stories were told, and maybe bonding that way. I think finding strategies to be there is really important. So if you do come across somebody who has military service or has experienced losses, like many of us have, being able to be there for them and kind of minding your own capacity for being able to be there is really important too. Sometimes I'm sure we've gotten into conversations before, and as it rolls on, thinking maybe this is a little much for me, or, I'm not sure exactly what to do with this. So just being there, being the listening ear, as Victor was saying, and then really connecting. So that includes, knowing some key resources if people are having challenges, but then also connection, like maybe down to your local Legion post and saying, hey, what are your events? Do you mind if I drop by to come spend some time with you guys and women, and really hearing about all of the stories that you have to share?
Thank you for that, Tess. Yeah, I think there's some real wisdom in this idea that the way to engage a person is to actually just sort of try to listen to them. Most of us there's a lot of stigma around people who serve now, and because we don't know them, ignorance breeds apathy, and so we tend to think, well, like, oh gosh, am I going to mess this person up by asking too many questions? One thing I've heard that I think is really helpful in this is that if one great way to engage someone who serves is ask them, hey, where did you serve? Who'd you serve with? It's a universal way. It's you see someone in uniform, hey, where do you serve? Who do you serve with? Cool. That's the question that's often asked. Who do you serve? What'd you do? Where'd you serve with? It's a great way to get people talking and sharing about their life. Oh, I didn't know. What job is that? Oh, I was an I-6 Bravo. What's that? That can be a wonderful way to engage somebody in their service. I wanted to, Gabe, do you have anyone else not just you, Gabe, sorry, I didn't mean to pick up.
No, I did want to add into that, Nate, to the previous conversation. I just wanted to say, really bring in the essence of peer support, the ability to show your vulnerability when they're sharing theirs, and just build that real camaraderie in between one another, and then take it from there, because you'll go step by step into something, great, and then help each other out. It just really brings a different perspective to things.
Thank you for sharing that, Gabe. Yeah, Shad.
There's a great book by a colleague of mine, Dr. Paula Kaplan, who wrote a book, Listen to a Veteran, about 5 years ago. It really did well. They've actually did a documentary on it. It's talking about this very thing. We had a big, about 9 years ago, they picked about 22 nonprofits around the country that were working with OEF, OIF vets, and at Harvard, at the Kennedy Center. I was delighted to be one of those, met some incredible people. And but that book, and you can get that at special discount, Listen to a Veteran by Dr. Paula Kaplan. And it's so true. I think whenever you run into someone to ask them, I always do. We do that. I mean, that's all I've been doing. But I think it's great to say, where did you serve? Who were you with? Kind of spoof and goof if they were Marines or you were Army, And even in our crisis calls, I have really turned to humor, even in suicide calls, which I take to a certain point. If I can get them to chuckle, and what Gabriel was saying about, the peer-to-peer thing and sharing with them that, you've had dark days or whatever, get them to feel like they're part of your world or your service or whatever. Incredible. That's a great book. And it's about what we're talking about. And anyway, I think that's one thing. I think the big issue that's coming up for the next 10 years for the OAF, OIF era vets is employment. I think employment is going to be the crusher for so many. Probably 60% of our crisis hotline is about jobs and employment. And we're in a capitalistic society. We got to face that. We can counsel and do peer-to-peer or whatever. But in this society, if they don't get work or get a job, can sustain themselves, they're either going to be products of the VA, where they're going to go and try to get a disability rating and live off that the rest of their life. I always discouraged that, particularly in the 70s and 80s, even before we put together what is now known as PTSD. And I still worry about that. If we don't get from the government to corporations to hire veterans, train veterans, we're in a lot of trouble for this group of veterans in the next 10 or 15 years. It's going to be a really bad situation. I feel strongly about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Shad. You struck a chord with me. I think you and Gabe in talking about what it means to try to connect with somebody. This day is a really hard day for a lot of people. If you've lost someone, in fact, 2 years ago, I did memorial on Memorial Day in deployed, and I was struck with not only the profound sense of loss, but also this sort of deeper sense that there's this sort of hidden loss that a lot of people feel, and when you lose someone or even experience these sort of catastrophic injuries or the struggle to come home, which, as the Greeks used to point out, was always the way you lost more soldiers coming home than you did in battle. That it was a well-known fact. This was 3,000 years ago. They knew that it wasn't war that you'd lose most of your soldiers. It was in coming home, and we have seen that continually. And you raise some really interesting questions about what does it mean to connect with people when they get home, and the consequences of that if we don't. That if we don't connect people to meaningful lives post-service, then they end up, getting the message that I guess they don't have a place for me here. I'm reminded of the story of Philoctetes, right? He ends up stranded on an island because he doesn't see a place for him because he has too many wounds. They smell too bad. So I want to leave. We have one question, but I wanted to first ask you a kind of closing question. We're talking about kind of current day vets and how do we take our lives and make sense of them post loss, post when we have survived people that didn't make it home. But all of those people lived for something. They didn't just die. They didn't just die in a car wreck, right? It wasn't just pure chaos. The people that we lost, the people that we remember, the lifestyle that maybe we look back on, was about something. It was about living for ideals. Shad, you mentioned the book Tribe. I think it was you, Shad. This idea. They lived ideals. There was a community. It was like they did this in a sense of bravery. And most people I find that join the service do this because they want to make the world a better place. So I guess my question is, what is that world? And on Memorial Day, what should we ask people to remember that they died for? And a lot of people will say thank you for your service or remember the people that they lost, but what is it that they were dying for? What stands out to you that today specifically that might encourage somebody to live a life that represents their life loss?
Well, Nate, I think I'd like to start off. Me personally, I never knew how to respond when someone would tell me, thank you for your service. It's like I signed up for a reason because I wanted to make a difference. And on Memorial Day, I feel like we have an obligation to fulfill that by continuing to provide the best veteran services we could possibly give back. And I feel like that's one way that I personally do it on Memorial Day. And every single day, just try to provide veterans the best service they can possibly get and just hold others accountable because we are providing a service that is essential.
I think it was Brene Brown, and Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, who said that one of the greatest things that you can do for another person is to hold space for them. So hold space. So hold a space of remembrance, hold a space of healing, because losses don't just affect those that are in the unit, but also the family members as well. So you have a whole group of family members who have lost loved ones that served in the military. You have communities who are not seeing their citizens return. So I think really holding space for that. And different people do it different ways. Shad, you mentioned, some people like to go out and peruse the sales, or some people like to get together with loved ones to have a barbecue. And I know that in our community specifically, there is debate about that, how people observe Memorial Day. But, really, I think that Memorial Day, while very difficult and there are a lot of memories and there's a lot of loss, and there are so many of us who have been touched by this loss, it's also, I would say, a celebration of life. So all that's left behind, make the whole world a memorial to the lives that have been lost, and celebrate those lives and appreciate them.
Thanks, Tess. Shad, Victor, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well,
It's kind of a heavy question.
I agree with Tess. I live for myself. I've lost 3 sergeants in the last 3 years that took care of me, and it gives me fuel to continue to do what I've done for a half a century. And it makes a lot of sense what Tess said. We really needs to motivate us to live a better life, and to, we're all doing things to improve other people's lives, but for ourselves too. And remember, there's got to be a reason why we came home and they didn't, and we need to make a difference, and we have. And I think that's a good thought to hold for us on Memorial Day.
Yeah, a phrase I often live. I think about a lot on today. Maybe this is just the chaplain, but a phrase that I've often said in funerals, even memorials in theater, is we remember that we live lives in the shelter of those who came before us, right? Or we sit under trees for whom other people planted the seeds. And that, if there's one day that we can connect with the idea that we came into this world, and there were warriors before us, and there will be warriors who give their lives in the future for ideals that we shared, and that in some way we're participating in that, and all of your work here really is, you even in just your inspiring stories, I think it's really clear that what you've chosen to do is to live in memoriam, right, in memory, to activate these memories to make life better for people who come after you, to plant seeds for whom other people will sit under their shade, right? And I want to close, and I want to take a question, but I figured, I guess as we're talking, I'm reminded, there was an ancient warrior, Pericles. You can see I have an affinity for the Greeks, and he once said that what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but is woven into the lives of others. And I've heard that echoed in all of your work. Everything from founding a foundation and building veteran centers to doing work not only as a soldier, as Gabe, but also in really dedicated work as a program to develop programs for VOA, or Victor, just some of the incredible work you're doing to advocate for veterans, even at City of Hope, and Tess, obviously the work that you do at the Veteran Family Wellness Center, and advocating and speaking on behalf of vets. Right, the idea is that that we memorialize them by the work that we do in the lives of others. So if you haven't been thanked today, I wanted to just say, I'm not going to thank you for your service because I think you still have a lifetime of service, and that includes you too, Shad. But you guys still got a long way to go, Shad. We have a lot of work to do still. Don't give up yet.
I ain't giving up. Hey.
All right, that's great. Thank you for the service you've put into this point. Thank you for being serious about your lives and living a life that does honor to the people who came before us. I know for myself, I think of today, and I know I wouldn't be a chaplain if I hadn't lost my best friend when I was a senior in college in Afghanistan. I know that, and I think about that a lot. You know, every time I take a suicide call, every time I help someone, I think, I would never have done that. I would have gone somewhere else had I not been deeply affected. So thank you for living in memoriam and for choosing to sow in the lives of others and hold space for them. Elena, do you want to share the question?
Can you hear me?
Victor? Oh. Yeah, that's all right. That's a wonderful question. So anybody want to take this? How can we support those that might be struggling during this time?
I think that the principles of just ask, be there, and connect really do extend far past, just service to the veterans community. I mean, again, we're all experiencing something very challenging, tremendously difficult. If you already have pre-existing trauma, it can activate that trauma and make it even more challenging to make it through. So, again, developing the language, finding the resources to direct people to, emergency resources included. It doesn't take an expert to save a life or to improve a life. It just takes a knowledge of resources and what's available, and then connecting people to that. What's the best way to connect somebody to that? Do they need a chat number that they can text on their phone anytime they feel like they need support? Can you drive them to a hospital if they need it? Those types of things.
Listen. Give them an opening to listen. When they get comfortable enough, ask them about their service, and it'll be like a great novel, because every veteran story that I've listened to, it's like, wow, that sure was different than a million I've heard, and it's incredible. And some people get nervous and talk when a veteran starts opening up. Just let them roll and prompt them to keep going, because they really need to get it out, and it's incredible. Their stories are incredible. I'm still listening.
Great.
One of the other things I would add, as you look to support the individual that might be struggling, think about ways in which you as a community can support the family members also. Because we don't serve in a bubble, right? When we serve, our families serve with us, whether they want to or not. We drag them through this process. And when we come home, they have to transition with us as well. So not just the service member, but think about that spouse, think about the dependent, think about the parent who may be the caregiver. There's so many people that it takes to help each and every one of us go through a day and be healthy and be whole. So, think about how you can support the totality of the family, not just the service member, him or herself. Like everyone else said, like Shad and both Tess said, be there and listen. Resist the temptation to say anything, and learn. Because there's a lot that someone's willing to share with you when they know that they're in a place that's healthy and judgment-free.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor. I think that's all the time we have for today. I just want to thank you. Thank you. Your lives are just incredible. If you see all their names on there, I don't know if we can give you their contact. But if anybody wants to contact any of these wonderful people, veterans in LA, man, these are the heroes among us, who are living out their lives in a way that's really meaningful. And so thank you for that. I also wanted to send a note that following this session, I'd love anyone who's joined us for this far to join in the rest of our program. Now, We Rise LA is proud to present a collection of actual special reflections and tributes that from leading veteran voices from here in Los Angeles and across the country. And then if you want to continue with us now after this, you're welcome to see some select remembrances, uniquely told through spoken word. We Rise is always great at this, storytelling, and because it's LA, lots of music along with some inspirational messages. So thank you for joining us, and stick around for some exciting other things.
Thank you.
Hello, Los Angeles County. It's John Sharon, the Director of Mental Health. I'm coming to you today from home in the midst of this COVID pandemic because I want to send out a very special message on Friday before Memorial Day. This is the Memorial Day weekend. And I would say that this holiday of sorts, which honors in a solemn fashion the fallen heroes of our country, is as important, if not more important than any given day for the United States of America. And with that in mind, I often reflect on a statement made by our first president, George Washington, who said something along the lines of, our younger generation will be willing to fight for our country based directly upon how those who return are treated. And what I would say is, for those who have not returned, who we honor and celebrate today, we must recognize them throughout the year, and particularly on this weekend. We also have many who do return, and upon returning, based on a number of factors, take their own lives. So I would ask that they be recognized as well. Please have a great and safe Memorial Day weekend. Take a moment of time to recognize that those who have defended our country, defended our union, and created opportunities for our future deserve our special thanks. Take care.
On Memorial Day, I begin to miss everyone I've served with, both alive and dead. And even though I'm surrounded by my loved ones, I feel alone again. I'm pulled from my thoughts as I hear someone complain about me being on my phone. They say Memorial Day is about family and being together. I'm not mad. I understand their perception of the day, so I smile and apologize, but quickly go back to the men I served with on my phone. I'm uncomfortable around everyone. And this isn't a new feeling, but it's one that's been absent for quite some time. But now everyone's aware of my sensitivity to the day, and they want to help but don't know how. So for the rest of it, they're soft with me, and it's uncomfortable. These moments are rare and becoming less frequent, but I still don't know how to deal with them. Maybe I never want to. Every year since on Memorial Day, I find myself looking for balance. It's always personally sad and at the same time a celebration of life and gratitude. I know that the friends we've lost would want us to spend the time we can enjoying our loved ones while we remember them. That provides a little bit of comfort. However, for many of us, there's also a sense of responsibility. But I can't tell you how my friends have sacrificed their lives to protect the men and women next to them. To clarify, it's not that I can't share these memories because it would be too hard, although that's also true. But I can't share these memories because even though they're the ones that weigh most heavily on me, they're not solely mine to share. They belong to the lost ones' friends and families. And for that reason, I can only share them with those closest to me while I attempt to grasp the scope of sacrifice and reverence that the day demands. But no matter what I do, at the end of it, I always find myself waiting in a mixture of guilt, appreciation, love, and sadness. Always sadness.
Hey, LA County, I'm Adam Rund, 0351 with the United States Marine Corps from 2008-2012. I was with my unit 2-2 Warlords, did a combat pump to Afghanistan and a MEU over to Libya for the Gaddafi conflict. Anyway, why we rise, why I rise. It was a tough transition. I didn't expect it to be a tough transition. It was, and luckily I found resources that helped me overcome that transitional period. And one of them was Higher Ground Los Angeles. They do recreational therapy camps for veterans with disabilities. And I have TBI from my service, and that really helped me. And so now I'm in a point in my life where I'm giving back. I actually joined the HDLA team to give back to our veterans. And I rise because of these guys, because they can't. So here's to giving back to our veteran community. And that's why I rise.
Hey folks, Robert Irvine here, and this is Why I Rise, for mental health awareness. I've seen firsthand the impact of ignoring the invisible wounds, and suicide has become a staggering epidemic amongst American veterans. And the symptoms are often hard to recognize. To someone struggling with depression, the isolation caused by this current health crisis can intensify the feelings of loneliness and abandonment. I've made it my mission to help as many veterans as possible get access to the mental health and wellness services that they need. With the help of organizations like Why We Rise, we can bring awareness, support, and hope to those suffering in silence. To those men and women that might be struggling with their mental health, if you're overwhelmed or you're facing something that feels too big to overcome on your own, you are not alone. I'm standing here right now along with thousands of others because you matter. We hear you, we see you, and you are not alone. We are not letting you go.
Hi, I'm John Gutierrez from the LA County Veterans AJCC, here to talk to you today about why I rise. When I left the service in 2015, I was lucky to meet some veterans that helped me navigate my transition. So now I work with veterans every day to help them navigate theirs. As we head into Memorial Day, we are reminded that the best way to honor the fallen is by serving the living. Please check us out at the Veteran Peer Access Network so you can see how together we rise.
Hi, I'm Steve Garvey. I was blessed to have almost a 20-year career playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres. You know, my father and two uncles served in World War II, and I listened to the stories of how they dedicated their lives, put their lives on the line for our country and for democracy. For all those who served our country and have passed and their families made that wonderful sacrifice of patriotism, I congratulate you and our prayers are with you. For all the veterans, thank you so much for what you've done. We always feel more safe and secure because of your dedication. So we rise Memorial Day, the Garvey family and you, celebrating our great veterans.
I am Jonathan Williams, President and CEO of the Battleship Iowa Museum. I represent a diverse group of Americans that come together to celebrate and remember those who serve every day aboard America's iconic battleship. This Memorial Day, we will continue our tradition of remembering those that paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedoms with a virtual program aboard Iowa. I'm honored to be a part of an amazing group of supporters and crew that rise together in support of each other, our veterans, and our community to ensure that the future remains bright for all Americans. Join me today in honoring those that serve by rising together in common purpose.
This is what we're going to Afghanistan with.
Oh, say hey, Fluffy. Say hey.
My name is Rebecca Murga. I served 10 years in the military, did multiple tours, Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan. And when I came back, I realized that pursuing filmmaking and storytelling was so critically important to remembering and honoring those who served alongside me and honoring those who didn't come back. And so that's really where War Inc. developed from. War Inc. tells the stories of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans through their tattoos. The project really evolved for a collective want to be able to tell stories of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans in a way that hadn't been told before. There were multiple veterans in front of and behind the camera who worked on this project. And ultimately, the final goal was to be able to honor those who served and to remember the stories of those we lost. And so on this Memorial Day, I think that being able to share a project that we worked so collectively hard on, we do rise for remembering those stories. And so thank you for taking the time to watch War Inc.
I served in Kyrgyzstan, Iraq, Kuwait, South Korea.
Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, and I served in Iraq.
I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
There have been a lot of chances for people to talk about Iraq or Afghanistan, but I don't think there have been a lot of chances for veterans themselves to talk about what those experiences were in their own voice in a way that doesn't have a politically charged message.
People always want to know and they ask you about your experiences and stuff like that. I started to think of tattoos as a way to tell the stories. So I got a soldier's cross tattooed on my back for my friends that died because I carried the burden of survivor's guilt.
It's a tribute to those that are no longer here, but it also serves as a reminder to maintain my humanity and the experiences that I've been through, where I am now, and how that's going to shape who I become in the future.
I hadn't really accepted that I had fully come home. Because I knew men who died. And there's a part of me that died over there.
I feel really alone in this world. I feel like, no one understands and no one gets it. And that's okay, I can deal with that.
I feel kind of lost, like it's like when all of those things that are really important to you all of a sudden disappear. When your path isn't exactly in front of you like it has been for so many years, then it's easy just to get really lost and kind of question who you are and why you're doing anything anymore.
It helps the civilian world kind of understand a little bit more about us, that we have thought processes behind our tattoos, behind what we do.
The clouds are like the angel rays coming down, and it's my feet,
They're my Chuck Taylors with wings, so it's like my feet going to heaven. Every day is hard, but kind of just accepted it and just try to make the best of what I got. I'm not dead, you know, like I'm always a glass is half full kind of person, so.
We're not all crazy. Some of us are hopeless romantics. No, just most of us are generally just funny guys and ridiculously good looking. And
yeah, people are very quick to judge when they hear military tattoos, which is a shame, in my opinion.
Opening communication between veterans and civilians, that communication's hard. I'm starting to realize that it's an important thing to do.
I feel like there might be one other veteran out there who might understand me. And if that makes them feel not so alone, then this whole project's worth it.
And the only sense of family I've ever felt was when I was in the Navy. And it's the most powerful feeling I've ever felt. I feel like I belong.
I smiled a lot today. I don't usually smile a lot. It made me pretty happy, and I'm not usually very happy. I felt a little more beautiful than I normally ever feel. I feel like a disgusting person most of the time. Today kind of took all that away from me. It really meant a lot to me. I couldn't have asked for a better day.
I'm Ashish Vazirani. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a Marine Corps dad. I'm the son of a disabled Vietnam vet. I'm also the CEO of the National Military Family Association. I rise because every morning military families wake up knowing that the weight of our national security is on their shoulders. Because while our nation has forgotten the wars we're still fighting, military families cannot. Because these wars dictate how often we move, how many schools our children attend, the emotional work our kids are asked to do, the mental health of our family. Because now, more than ever, military families keep serving on the front lines of our nation and on the front lines of a health crisis. I rise for every military family with one partner in uniform and another in a mask in a hospital working to keep our fellow Americans safe. I rise for their kids. I rise for the families who lost a loved one in our country's defense, the fallen heroes we honor and remember. I rise because they do, and I rise because together we're stronger.
Being in the military is tough. You're dealing with deployments, your family's moving every 2 to 3 years, and sometimes you're dealing with a service member's injury. And it's not just the service member who's affected, it's every member of the military family.
The National Military Family Association is the leading advocacy organization for military families through all stages of military life. The organization also provides programs and services that fill gaps where policy and legislation end.
When a family is well supported, the service member can focus on the mission at hand.
Together, we're stronger.
Together, we're stronger.
Together, we're stronger.
Together, we are stronger.
We Rise LA works with the LA Department of Mental Health to provide health and wellness resources to LA County residents. This Memorial Day, join We Rise LA as they work to provide support to our armed forces, veterans, and their families. No group is more deserving of our support, so I hope you'll join me in saying thank you to our service members and their loved ones. Thank you for your service and for your sacrifice. For mental health resources and information on ways to promote wellness in your community, go to werise.la today.
Hey LA County, this is Chris from Silver Lake. I rise for my family, friends, and higher ground Los Angeles. We cook together, we camp together, we climb together, and we surf and cycle together. We also cry and laugh together, and we heal together. We are veterans, we are supporters, and we are families. We are diverse, inclusive, and connected. We are adventure, belonging, and support. And today, tomorrow, and any future day, we will rise together.
Hey, what's up, Los Angeles County? This is Jim Zenner talking about why we rise, why I rise. I transitioned out of the military back in 2008 from active duty and relocated with my family here in Los Angeles County. And, it wasn't easy. Had to overcome a lot and change the way I thought from military to civilian and adapt and keep the strengths that I got from the military and adopt a new way of acting. And, now that I've kind of gotten in a good place in my life, it's about giving back to the thousands of service members that transition out of our military and relocate back here in LA County, and making sure that our men and women have the right people to speak to mentor them, to just kind of give them some intel so that they're not making the same mistakes that maybe some of us that made the transition before make. All right, LA County, look forward to seeing you at We Rise. Check us out, Veteran Peer Access Network. Later.
Hi, this is Thomas Patrick O'Shaughnessy. I'm a Los Angeles County Veterans Advisory Commissioner and a Vietnam Air Force veteran. When I think of Memorial Day and I rise up to do work for the community and for fellow veterans, I remember the one nagging thought that came to me when I came back, and it comes to many of us. Why did I come home alive and why did others not come home? I remember our Los Angeles National Cemetery and the events that have been held there and the history that embodies for Southern California. I remember Arlington National Cemetery and my visits there, and I most remember walking that long pathway next to those adjoining black panels, which are the dead from the 19 years of the Vietnam War. We must remember the men and women who put themselves in harm's way and those fellow veterans that did not return home. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, safe, and healthy Memorial Day weekend.
Hi, LA County veterans. I'm Kathy Roth-Duquet. I'm the CEO of Blue Star Families. We support military families in ways that strengthen communities. I rise for our community. We're active duty, Guard and Reserve, wounded, transitioning service members and their families, and we're in this together. I'm in it with you. I'm in it because I love our community. I rise for the future. This Memorial Day, we remember those we've lost. We also remember the community we've got together. We've got a beautiful tomorrow. Sending my love and hoping we all continue to rise together. Take care.
We rise because there's something great within each of us that can't be stopped.
What's going on, We Rise? How are we? My name is Elliot McKenzie, and first I want to give a huge shout out to We Rise for having me tonight. It's always an honor to be able to be part of such an amazing event. Mental illness is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I deal with every single day. I served in the military for 8 years, and when I got home from the Iraq War, I had depression, anxiety, hyper-awareness, and a whole laundry list of other issues that basically took over my life for a number of years. And I've been lucky enough to be able to take my talents in music and use those talents as a form of expression and a form of therapy, and that has literally saved my life. So tonight, I want to be able to bring you into my world a little bit and do something that I call a mini therapy session through music. And I'm going to be performing 3 songs for you guys. We're going to talk about topics about knowing that you're not alone when you're going through situations, knowing that even though you might have failed in life or failed at something in life, you can still come back from that failure and succeed. And then lastly, I'm going to do a song for you guys that talks about going to that happy place whenever you might be having a bad moment or a bad day. So the first song that I'm going to do for you guys is a song that I wrote, which is coming on my upcoming album, and it's called No You're Not Alone. This song is specifically about knowing that you're not alone when you're going through something. Whatever it is in life, I want you to remember that you've got friends, you've got family, you always have a supportive group of people that you can rely on to get through that situation as a team. Always remember that you're not alone. Let's go.
When the times get rough and you've had enough, I will find you and bring you home. When you're feeling like the world's over, but it's really just begun, just find the strength to fight back and bring you home. Now I know the time's rough, living a life of struggle. You're living every day just to get to the next. Said I know that life's rough, but I also know with the right support, you can find a way. When the times get rough and you've had enough, I will find you. When you're feeling like the world's over, but it's really just begun, just find the strength to fight back and bring you home. Said I've been where you are, wondering where to start, feeling like your life is over, but I know you can fly. All you've gotta do is find yourself a set of wings. You can fly with me. When the times get rough and you've had enough, I will find you and bring you home. When you're feeling like the world's over, but it's really just begun, just find the strength to fight back. Just find the strength to fight back and bring you
So that was No You're Not Alone. Again, No You're Not Alone is a song that's really near and dear to my heart because I've been in that position where something was happening in my life and I felt like I was alone. And it wasn't until I remembered that I had people in my life who cared about me that those positive changes started to happen. This next song that I want to do for you guys is a song called Failure. This song is about specifically remembering that even though you might fail at something in life, you can still come back from that failure and succeed. An example would be, I used to be homeless. I was living in my car for a period of time after I got out of the military, but now I'm successful. I've got my own apartment. I'm doing well in life. And another example is I thought I was going to fail out of college. When I went to school, I failed multiple classes. I was even on academic probation. I didn't know what I was going to do, and it was all due to my depression. But I ended up succeeding, and I ended up getting my focus back and actually graduated from college in 2018 with my bachelor's degree. So this song is specifically about knowing that even though you might have failed, you can still climb that ladder and come right back up to success. This is Failure.
Done been down that road that we call failure, and I done see where it leads. It can take you anywhere. All you gotta do is take the wheel and turn right back round to your success. I done been down that road that we call failure. I don't know if you've ever gone and touched the bottom of life. It's a place where no one wants to go. Living off everything that you have cause you think you're out of time. Well, I've got something for you that will change your mind. Cause I've been there before. I've walked right through that door. And this time I wanna see you next to me. You won't ever see me. No, giving up on my own dreams. Cause I done been down that road that we call failure, and I done see where it leads. It can take you anywhere. All you gotta do is take the wheel and turn right back round to your success. I done been down that road that we call failure. Now you know what it feels like to touch the bottom. Now I say that you come in me to touch the top. All the pain that you have, we're watching it go away. And all the dreams that you had, we're watching them come true. Cause I've been there before. I've walked right through that door. But this time, I wanna see you with me. You won't ever see me giving up on my own dreams. Cause I done been down that road that we call failure. And I done see where it leads. It can lead you anywhere. All you gotta do is take the wheel and turn right back round to your success. I done been down that road that we call failure. I done been down that road that we call failure. And I done see where it leads. It can take you anywhere. All you gotta do is take the wheel and turn right back round to your success. I done been down that road that we call failure.
So that was Failure. I got a little up-tempo energy going for you, and I want to keep that energy going with my next song. This last song that I'm going to do for you guys is called Paradise. Paradise is a really fun, energetic reggae record about taking yourself to that happy place when you might be having a down moment. Like, for example, if your anxiety or your depression is acting up, there's that place where you typically go, that go-to spot where you know you can escape and you can turn that negative energy into a positive energy. For me, that place is a hiking trail that's near my apartment. I love to get outdoors, love to go jogging, and I love to hike. So if I'm having a bad moment, my paradise is my trail outside. Whatever your paradise is, this song is meant to remind you to take yourself to that paradise. This is Paradise.
The sun is shining, won't come down on me. No clouds are out today. Oh, I wanna go to that place where my heaven lives. It's right in front of me. Oh, hit the waves 'cause it's just such a beautiful day. Hit the mountaintop till I feel I can fly. All my troubles, oh, they seem so far away. And now all I've gotta do is go right to you. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be me. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be free. My paradise, I really, really, really wanna go. My paradise, so I can flow. Drop top, I'm rolling down that road. I'm feeling so free. Oh, my troubles, though, they ain't following me. Yeah. I left them far behind. Whoa, hit the waves 'cause it's just such a beautiful day. Hit the mountaintop till I feel I can fly. All my troubles, oh, they seem so far away. And now all I've gotta do is go right to you. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be me. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be free. My paradise, I really, really, really wanna go. My paradise, so I can flow. Let it ride, let it ride, let it ride. Yeah. Whoa. Let it ride, let it ride, let it ride. Yeah. Oh, whoa. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be me. My paradise, that place where I feel I can be free. My paradise, I really, really, really wanna go. My paradise, so I can flow.
All right, that was Paradise. I wanted to try to end things on a high note. I know right now we're in the middle of a crazy time with this pandemic that's going on, but I want to say that I feel like it's really important that we remember that we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this as a community. This is a time when we need to stick together. This is a time when mental illness is probably at an all-time high, and it's super, super important that we get through this as a community. I know that on a day like today, Memorial Day, we are remembering those who have lost their lives in war for this country, but I feel like this Memorial Day is a little bit extra special because of the fact that so many people have lost their lives to COVID-19, and this Memorial Day, we might also want to think about the people who have lost their lives on the front lines of the battle that we're fighting today. It's always a pleasure to be a part of We Rise, and I'd love to say thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Let's go.